Lisa Carter opened her eyes slowly. Her head hurt badly. Everything around her was dark and quiet. She tried to remember where she was. Then it came back to her. She was on the spaceship New Horizon. She was supposed to be sleeping in the cold sleep pod for 6 months while they traveled to a new planet. But something was very wrong. The pod was cracked open. Cold air hit her face. She could hear wind blowing outside the ship. That should not be possible. Spaceships did not have wind inside them. Lisa sat up carefully. Her body felt stiff and sore. She looked around the small room where her sleeping pod was kept. The walls were bent and broken. Sparks came from broken wires in the ceiling. Red emergency lights flashed on and off. "Hello," she called out. "Is anyone there?" No one answered. Lisa climbed out of her pod. Her legs felt weak. She had to hold on to the wall to keep from falling. She was still wearing her thin sleeping clothes. The air was very cold. She walked to the door of her room. It was stuck. She pushed hard and it opened with a loud screech. Outside in the hallway, things looked even worse. Pieces of metal and plastic were everywhere. Some of the ceiling had fallen down. "Jake? Captain Brown? Anyone?" Lisa called louder. Still no answer. She made her way down the hallway to the main control room. Her bare feet stepped on sharp pieces of broken glass and metal. Each step hurt, but she kept going. The control room was a mess. All the computer screens were dark or broken. The captain's chair was empty. Papers and equipment floated in the air because the ship's gravity was not working right. Lisa found a working computer panel. She pressed buttons with shaking fingers. Slowly, information appeared on the small screen. What she read made her stomach feel sick. The ship had crashed. They were on the surface of planet Kepler 442c. That was supposed to be their destination, but they were supposed to land safely, not crash. The crash happened 2 days ago. The other 11 people on the ship were all listed as dead or missing. She was alone. Lisa felt tears in her eyes. Jake had been her best friend since college. Captain Brown was a good man who told funny stories. Dr. Martinez had taught her about alien plants. Now they were all gone, but she could not cry now. She had to survive. Lisa went to the supply room. Most of the supplies were scattered and broken, but she found some things she could use. She put on a thick coat, boots, and gloves. She found a breathing mask that would help her breathe the planet's air. She also found some food bars, water bottles, and a small computer tablet that still worked. She looked at the information about the planet on her tablet. Kepler 442c was supposed to have air that humans could breathe, but it was not very good air. The planet was mostly rocks and dust. No plants or animals lived there. The temperature was very cold. Dust storms happened often. It was not a good place to be stuck alone. Lisa found the door that led outside the ship. She put on her breathing mask and opened the door. Cold wind hit her right away. She had to squint her eyes because dust was flying everywhere. Outside, the world looked dead and gray. The ground was covered with sharp rocks and dust. The sky was a dirty yellow color. In the distance, she could see tall mountains that looked like broken teeth. There was no sign of life anywhere. The ship had made a long, deep cut in the ground when it crashed. Pieces of the ship were scattered for miles. Lisa could see smoke still coming from some of the broken parts. She walked around the crash site for an hour, looking for any other survivors. She found pieces of equipment and personal things that belonged to her crewmates, but no people. Some of the pieces were burned. Others were buried under heavy metal. Lisa sat down on a large rock and ate one of her food bars. It tasted like cardboard, but she was hungry. She had maybe enough food for 1 week if she was careful. After that, she did not know what she would do. As she sat there, she heard a strange sound. It was like music, but not music that humans made. It was high and low at the same time, like wind blowing through a pipe, but more complex. Lisa stood up and looked around. She did not see anything at first. Then, about 50 yards away, she saw something move behind a big rock. She walked closer carefully. Her heart was beating fast. There were no animals on this planet, so what could it be? When she got closer, she could not believe what she saw. Standing behind the rock was a creature unlike anything she had ever seen. It was tall, maybe 8 feet. Its body looked like it was made of blue crystal or glass. Light moved inside it like slow lightning. It had 2 arms and 2 legs like a human, but everything about it was different. The creature saw her at the same time. They both stopped moving and stared at each other. Lisa's mind raced. This was impossible. There was no life on this planet. The surveys had been very clear about that. But here was something that was clearly alive and clearly not human. The creature made that musical sound again. It was trying to communicate. Lisa held up her hands to show she was not dangerous. She took one small step forward. The creature took one step back. They watched each other like two wild animals meeting for the first time. Neither of them knew that this moment would change everything, not just for them, but for both of their entire species. Lisa and the crystal creature stared at each other for a long time. Neither moved. The wind blew dust around them, but they did not look away from each other. Finally, Lisa spoke. "Hello," she said in a soft voice. The creature made its musical sound again. This time it sounded different, almost like it was asking a question. Lisa pointed to herself. "Lisa," she said slowly. "My name is Lisa." The creature tilted its head. The light inside its body moved faster. It pointed to itself and made a sound like Zeph. "Zeph?" Lisa repeated. The creature nodded. At least it moved its head in a way that looked like nodding. Maybe some things were the same across different species. For the next hour, they tried to talk to each other. It was very hard. Zeph could make many different musical sounds, but Lisa could not understand what they meant. Lisa tried using hand signals and drawing pictures in the dust, but Zeph seemed confused. When the sun started to go down, the air became even colder. Lisa shivered in her coat. Zeph seemed to notice this. The creature pointed toward a hill about a mile away. Then it started walking in that direction. Lisa was not sure if she should follow. Zeph could be dangerous, but she was alone on a dead planet with very little food. Maybe following this strange creature was better than trying to survive by herself. She decided to follow, but she stayed far behind Zeph. If the creature tried to hurt her, she could run back to her ship. Zeph led her to a place between two large rocks that blocked the wind. There was also what looked like the remains of another crashed ship. But this ship was very different from Lisa's. It looked like it had been grown instead of built. Its walls were smooth and curved like the inside of a shell. Zeph went inside the ship and came out carrying things that looked like tools, but they were also organic-looking. Everything about Zeph's technology seemed alive in some way. Zeph used these tools to create a small shelter against the rocks. The tools seemed to make materials appear from nothing. Soon there was a wall that blocked the wind completely. Lisa was amazed. This was technology far beyond what humans had, but she was also grateful. The shelter made the cold much more bearable. That night, they sat on opposite sides of the shelter. Lisa ate one of her food bars. Zeph did not seem to eat anything. Instead, it just sat very still, and the light inside its body grew brighter. Over the next few days, they slowly learned to communicate better. Lisa discovered that Zeph was very good at mathematics. They could both draw numbers and simple equations in the dust. This helped them share basic ideas. Lisa learned that Zeph was also stranded. Its ship had crashed at the same time as hers, but on the other side of the valley. Zeph had been looking for a way to send a signal to its people when it found Lisa. Zeph learned that Lisa was a scientist who studied living things. When she drew pictures of plants and animals, Zeph became very excited. It drew its own pictures that showed worlds covered with amazing life forms that Lisa had never imagined. After a week, Lisa got sick. The planet's air was slowly poisoning her, even with the breathing mask. She felt weak and could not keep food down. Her skin started to turn a strange color. Zeph noticed that something was wrong. It came closer to Lisa and made worried musical sounds. Lisa tried to explain that she was sick, but she did not have the words. Zeph seemed to understand anyway. It knelt down next to Lisa and held out one of its crystal hands. Lisa was scared, but she was also dying. She had nothing to lose. When Zeph touched her, Lisa felt something incredible happen. It was like tiny workers were moving through her body, fixing things that were broken. The crystal creature's light became very dim, and Lisa could tell that whatever Zeph was doing was costing it a lot of energy. The process took hours. Lisa felt pain but also relief as the poison left her body. When it was over, Zeph collapsed and did not move for a whole day. Lisa was worried that she had killed her new friend, but eventually Zeph woke up. From that day forward, everything changed between them. Zeph had risked its own life to save Lisa. This was not something an enemy would do. Lisa started sharing her food with Zeph, even though the creature did not seem to need it. She also started teaching Zeph about human technology. Zeph was very interested in how Lisa's computer tablet worked. Zeph began showing Lisa how its tools worked. Lisa discovered that they were not really tools at all. They were living things that Zeph could control. Zeph's people, the Verdani, were not just intelligent. They could work with life itself in ways that seemed like magic to Lisa. When Zeph showed her how to make the tools create clean water from the dust and rocks, Lisa realized that her new friend might be the key to surviving on this dead world. They decided to work together. Lisa would share her knowledge of science and survival. Zeph would share its ability to create and control living things. Together, they might be able to build something better than just a basic shelter. They chose a spot in a protected valley to build their base. Lisa used her engineering knowledge to plan it. Zeph used its abilities to make it real. Soon they had a proper shelter with clean air, clean water, and protection from the dust storms. For the first time since the crash, Lisa felt hope. She was no longer alone. She had a friend who was strange and wonderful and completely unlike anyone she had ever met, but she had no idea that their friendship was about to create something that had never existed before in the entire universe. Something that would change both of their worlds forever. 6 months after the first plants appeared, Lisa began to notice changes in herself. At first, they were small things. Her sense of smell became much stronger. She could tell when plants needed water just by being near them. Her hands could sense the health of living things when she touched them, but the changes were becoming bigger. One morning, Lisa woke up from a strange dream. In the dream, she had been swimming in an ocean of light on a world with 3 suns. The water was warm and filled with creatures that sang beautiful songs. But the strangest part was that Lisa knew this was not her dream. It was Zeph's memory from its home world. "Zeph," she said when she found her friend tending to the plants, "I think I dreamed your memories last night." Zeph stopped what it was doing and looked at her carefully. The light inside its body moved in patterns that Lisa now knew meant deep thought. "I've been having strange experiences too," Zeph said in its musical voice. "Yesterday I found myself wanting to laugh when I saw a funny-shaped rock." Verdani do not laugh, but humans do. Lisa sat down next to Zeph among the plants. The garden around their base now covered several square miles. There were hundreds of different types of plants, and they were all connected in a complex network. Some days Lisa felt like she could sense the entire network as if it were one giant living thing. "What's happening to us?" she asked. Zeph was quiet for a long time. "I think we are becoming something new," it finally said. "Not human, not Verdani, but something that is both." Lisa had been thinking the same thing. She was still human, but she was also becoming something more. Her connection to Zeph and to the living network they had created was growing stronger every day. The changes were not just in their minds. Lisa's body was becoming stronger and healthier than it had ever been. She no longer needed her breathing mask to survive the planet's air. The tiny Verdani organisms that had saved her life months ago had never left her body. They had made permanent changes that let her breathe air that would have killed her before. Zeph was changing too. The crystal creature had developed something that looked like emotions. It could feel happy, sad, curious, and worried in ways that its people apparently could not. When Lisa was hurt or sick, Zeph felt pain too. One day, a massive solar storm hit the planet. The radiation from the storm was deadly to both humans and Verdani. But Lisa and Zeph discovered they could work together to create protection that neither could make alone. They stood in the center of their garden and joined hands. Lisa felt Zeph's consciousness merge with hers. For a moment, they were not 2 separate beings but one creature with the abilities of both species. Together, they reached out to every plant in their network. The plants responded, growing thick protective barriers and generating an energy field that blocked the deadly radiation. The storm lasted for days, but their living shield held strong. When it was over, Lisa and Zeph realized what they had done. They had controlled an entire ecosystem with their combined will. This was power that neither humans nor Verdani had ever possessed alone. "We're not just creating new life," Lisa said. "We're becoming a new type of life ourselves." As the months passed, their bond grew even stronger. They could communicate without words, sharing thoughts and feelings directly. When one of them learned something new, the other knew it too. When one was hurt, the other felt the pain. But they were still themselves. Lisa was still the curious scientist who loved learning new things. Zeph was still the gentle creature who cared deeply about all living things. Their partnership made them more than they had been alone, not less. The garden continued to grow and change. New creatures began to appear. At first, they were very simple, tiny insects that helped the plants reproduce. But as time went on, more complex animals emerged. There were crystal butterflies that sang in harmony with Zeph's voice. There were small mammals that had Lisa's brown eyes and seemed to understand human speech. There were fish-like creatures that swam through the air instead of water, their bodies glowing with internal light. All of these creatures were combinations of Earth life and Verdani life, just like the plants. But they were also something entirely new. They were smarter and more aware than normal animals. They seemed to exist in harmony with each other and with the environment in ways that amazed both Lisa and Zeph. One evening, as they sat watching the crystal butterflies dance in the twilight, Lisa realized something important. "Zeph," she said, "we're not just creating new life. We're creating a new way for life to exist. Everything here works together. Nothing fights or competes. They all help each other." Zeph nodded. "On my world and on yours, life struggles to survive. Here, life simply lives. It is what my people have always dreamed of, but never achieved." Lisa thought about Earth, with its wars and pollution and struggling ecosystems. She thought about all the problems that humans had created by competing instead of cooperating. What she and Zeph had built here was like a vision of what life could be if it were designed from the beginning to work together. But their greatest discovery was still to come. One night, Lisa woke up feeling strange. She felt nauseated and dizzy. At first, she thought she was getting sick again. But as the days passed, she realized what was happening. She was pregnant. This should have been impossible. She and Zeph were completely different species. They could not reproduce together. But somehow the impossible had happened again. When she told Zeph, the crystal creature glowed brighter than she had ever seen. "This is beyond anything in our ancient stories," Zeph said. "A new type of being is going to be born." Lisa was scared and excited at the same time. What kind of child would be born from such an impossible union? Would it be human, Verdani, or something completely new? As her pregnancy progressed, Lisa felt the child growing inside her. But it was not growing like a normal human baby. She could sense its thoughts and feelings even before it was born. It was already connected to the living network around them, already part of the new ecosystem they had created. The plants and animals in their gardens seemed to know about the coming birth too. They grew more vibrant and active, as if they were preparing to welcome a new member of their strange family. Lisa and Zeph knew that when this child was born, everything would change. They had already created new life and new ways of living, but this child would be the bridge between their worlds, the living proof that humans and Verdani could become something wonderful together. Neither of them could imagine just how wonderful that something would turn out to be. 2 years after Lisa first woke up on the dead planet, she heard the sound of approaching spaceships. She and Zeph had been expecting this day for months. Their distress signals had finally been answered. Lisa stood in the center of their garden, holding her 6-month-old daughter in her arms. The child was beautiful beyond description. She had Lisa's human features, but also Zeph's crystal-like skin that glowed softly with internal light. Her eyes were both brown like Lisa's and multicolored like Zeph's. When she laughed, it sounded like human laughter mixed with Verdani music. Her name was Hope, and she was impossible. The approaching ships were from both Earth and from Zeph's homeworld. The rescue teams had been working together to find their missing people. What they found instead was something that challenged everything. Both species thought they knew about life. Captain Rodriguez from the Earth ship walked through the garden with his mouth open in amazement. The planet's surface, which their sensors had shown as completely dead, was now covered with thriving life for hundreds of miles in every direction. "Dr. Carter," he said, "our report said this planet could not support life. How is any of this possible?" Commander Velsha from the Verdani vessel was equally stunned. The tall, elegant crystal being communicated through a translation device, but its amazement was clear. "Zeph of the deep waters, what you have accomplished here is beyond our greatest achievements. How did you create such harmony between different forms of life?" Lisa and Zeph looked at each other. Where could they even begin to explain? Over the following days, scientists from both ships studied the impossible ecosystem. They discovered that every living thing in the garden was genetically unique. Combinations of Earth and Verdani biology that should not be able to exist. But not only did they exist, they thrived in ways that surpassed either parent species. The plants could survive in conditions that would kill normal Earth plants. They could also manipulate their environment in ways that normal Verdani organisms could not. The animals were more intelligent and adaptable than anything either species had ever seen. And at the center of it all was hope. Dr. Kim from the Earth team ran every test she could think of on the baby. Her genetic structure is impossible, she told Lisa. She has complete human DNA and complete Verdani DNA, but they're not fighting each other. They're working together in ways that our science says cannot happen. Hope seemed to enjoy the attention. When Dr. Kim held her, the baby reached out and touched the scientist's hand. Suddenly, Dr. Kim's chronic back pain disappeared completely. She healed me, Dr. Kim whispered in amazement. Hope could do things that neither humans nor Verdani could do alone. She could communicate with the plants and animals in the garden. She could heal injuries with a touch. Most amazingly, wherever she crawled, new life seemed to bloom in her wake. The rescue teams faced a difficult decision. Their original plan had been to take Lisa and Zeph home to their respective worlds, but now they realized that separating the family might stop the incredible process that was happening here. Lisa was torn. Part of her missed Earth and wanted to go home. But this strange planet had become her home too. Hope belonged here among the impossible life they had created, and Lisa could not imagine being separated from Zeph after everything they had shared. I want to stay, she finally decided. This is where Hope belongs. This is where I belong now too. Zeph made the same choice. Its home world seemed very far away compared to the new world they had built together. Many of the scientists from both rescue teams asked to stay as well. They wanted to study and help develop this new form of life. Within months, the first human Verdani research station was established in the garden. Dr. Martinez, who had volunteered to stay, made an important discovery. The ecosystem is expanding, she reported to Earth and to Zeph's homeworld. The circle of life grows larger every day. At this rate, the entire planet will be transformed within 10 years. She was right. Hope's presence seemed to accelerate everything. The baby could somehow coordinate the growth of the living network across vast distances. Under her influence, dead rock became fertile soil. Toxic air became breathable. Barren land became garden. As Hope grew from a baby into a toddler, her abilities became even more remarkable. She could speak to humans in words and to Verdani in musical tones. She seemed to understand things about life and existence that amazed even the greatest scientists from both species. Other human Verdani couples began to form among the researchers. To everyone's amazement, they too could have children like Hope. Each new child was unique but shared the same impossible combination of abilities. These children became the founders of something completely new, not just a new species, but a new way of living. They could work with life at levels that neither parent species had imagined. Under their guidance, the transformed planet became a paradise where all forms of life worked together in perfect harmony. Word of the miracle spread to both worlds. Soon volunteers were arriving from Earth and from Verdani space to help build new colonies based on the same principles. The children taught them how to create ecosystems where technology and nature were one and the same. Lisa, now middle-aged, stood on a hill overlooking the first major city on the transformed planet. It was beautiful beyond description. Buildings that were grown rather than built. Transportation systems that were living creatures. Energy that came from the cooperation of countless organisms. Hope, now a young woman, stood beside her. Around them, dozens of other children played in gardens that responded to their thoughts and emotions. "Are you happy with what we've created?" Hope asked her mother. Lisa smiled. "I never imagined anything this wonderful was possible." Zeph approached them, moving with the same graceful steps that had first amazed Lisa years ago. Their bond was stronger than ever. They were still two individuals, but they were also part of something larger. A family, a community, a new form of life itself. "The first colony ship from Earth arrives next month," Zeph said, "and a Verdani expansion fleet will arrive soon after. Both of our peoples want to learn what we have discovered here." Lisa nodded. It was exciting and a little scary. Their little family had started something that was spreading across the galaxy. Other human Verdani partnerships were being formed on other worlds. Each one created new types of life and new ways of living. Hope looked up at the stars beginning to appear in the evening sky. "I can sense them," she said quietly. Other worlds where life is beginning to bloom the way it did here. We're not alone anymore. Lisa thought about her words. She had started this journey feeling completely alone on a dead planet. Now she was part of a growing network of life that spanned multiple worlds and multiple species. No, she agreed, putting her arm around her impossible daughter. We're definitely not alone. As the three of them watched the sunset paint the sky in colors that no normal world could produce, Lisa reflected on the journey that had brought them here. She had been a scientist studying life, but she had ended up creating entirely new forms of it. The dead planet where she had crash-landed was now a garden world that would serve as the model for thousands of others. The alien she had feared was now her closest companion. The impossible child they had created was leading her species toward a future brighter than anyone had ever imagined. Sometimes the greatest discoveries came not from laboratories or universities, but from the simple act of two very different beings choosing to trust each other and work together. Life, Lisa had learned, was not just about survival. It was about cooperation, growth, and the endless possibility of becoming something better than what you were before. And in that sense, their story was just beginning. 3 months had passed since Lisa and Zeph started working together. Their small base had grown into a comfortable home. They had clean water, good shelter, and enough food for Lisa to eat. Zeph had learned to make simple foods that humans could digest from the rocks and dust around them. Lisa had also learned many things about Zeph and the Verdani people. She discovered that Zeph was like a walking ecosystem. Inside its crystal body were millions of tiny living things that worked together. These tiny creatures could change matter at the smallest level, turning one thing into another thing. Their communication had improved greatly. Zeph could now make sounds that were almost like human words. Lisa had learned to understand many of Zeph's musical tones. They could have real conversations about complex ideas. One morning, Lisa woke up and noticed something strange outside their shelter. There were small green spots on the gray rocks near where they lived. At first, she thought her eyes were playing tricks on her. She went outside to look closer. The green spots were real. They were tiny plants, no bigger than her fingernail. But that was impossible. Nothing grew on this planet. The surveys had been very clear about that. "Zeph," she called. "Come look at this." Zeph came outside and saw the green spots. The crystal creature made surprised musical sounds. It knelt down and touched one of the tiny plants with a finger. The light inside Zeph's body started moving very fast. "This should not be possible," Lisa said. Zeph looked at her and made sounds that Lisa had learned meant, "I agree." Over the next few days, more green spots appeared. They were only growing in a circle around their base. Outside the circle, the planet was still dead and gray. Inside the circle, life was starting to appear. Lisa studied the tiny plants carefully with the tools she had. What she found amazed her. These were not plants from Earth. They were also not plants from Zeph's world. They were something completely new. The plants had parts that looked like Earth plants, but they also had structures that seemed more like the living tools that Zeph created. It was as if someone had mixed Earth life and Verdani life together to make something that had never existed before. "How is this happening?" Lisa asked Zeph. Zeph was quiet for a long time. Then it started making complex musical sounds while drawing pictures in the dust. Lisa watched and listened carefully. Zeph was explaining that its people had old stories about something called the catalyst species. According to these stories, somewhere in the universe was a type of life that could work with Verdani abilities to create new forms of life, but these were just stories. No one had ever found such a species. "You think humans are the catalyst species?" Lisa asked. Zeph made the sound that meant maybe. Lisa thought about this. She and Zeph had been living very close to each other for months. She shed hair and skin cells every day, just like all humans did. Maybe those cells mixed with Zeph's tiny living creatures were creating these new plants. To test this idea, Lisa collected some of her hair and gave it to Zeph. Zeph held the hair and concentrated. Its body glowed brighter than Lisa had ever seen before. Then Zeph placed the hair on a bare rock. Within hours, a new type of plant began to grow from that spot. This one was different from the others. It had leaves that glowed softly in the dark. Lisa was so excited she could barely contain herself. This was the greatest scientific discovery in human history. Two completely different types of life were working together to create something that neither could make alone. Over the following weeks, The circle of life around their base grew larger. New types of plants appeared every day. Some were small and delicate like flowers. Others grew tall and strong like trees. A few were strange combinations that looked like they belonged in a fairy tale. The most amazing thing was that each new plant seemed to be designed for a specific purpose. Some cleaned the air, making it easier for Lisa to breathe. Others seemed to collect water from the atmosphere. A few even produced fruits that were safe for Lisa to eat and somehow gave Zeph energy as well. One day, Lisa noticed that the plants were not just growing randomly. They were organizing themselves into a pattern that looked almost like a garden. The air-cleaning plants grew near their shelter. The water-collecting plants grew where they were most needed. The food plants grew in neat rows. "Zeph," Lisa said, "I think the plants are intelligent." Zeph had noticed this too. It explained that in Verdani culture the line between intelligence and life was not clear. All living things had some level of awareness, even if it was very simple. But these new plants seemed to have more awareness than simple life forms should have. When Lisa walked among them, they turned their leaves toward her like they were watching her. When Zeph passed by, they made tiny musical sounds that harmonized with Zeph's own tones. Lisa began to realize that what they had created was not just new life. It was a new type of ecosystem that included both of them as essential parts. The plants needed both human and Verdani influence to survive. But Lisa and Zeph also benefited from the plants in ways they were only beginning to understand. When a massive dust storm threatened their base, the plants did something incredible. They linked together, creating a living barrier that protected the entire area. The storm raged for 3 days, but inside their circle of life the air remained clean and calm. Lisa sat in their shelter during the storm, watching the plants work together to protect them. She realized that she and Zeph had not just created life on a dead world. They had created a new form of life that was more advanced and more beautiful than anything either of their species had achieved alone. "What have we done?" she asked Zeph. Zeph looked at her with what she had learned to recognize as happiness. "We have done something wonderful," it replied in its musical voice. Lisa nodded. But she also felt a little scared. If this was possible, if humans and Verdani could work together to create such amazing things, what did that mean for both of their species? What would happen when their people found them? Outside, the storm raged on, but their impossible garden stood strong against it. Life had found a way to exist where it should not be possible. And Lisa was beginning to suspect that this was only the beginning.